Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rocket Lab Weekly, episode 45. This is really, it feels like the Super Bowl weekend for Rocket Lab. We have had the earnings. We have had an amazing interview with these two guys and Scotto with Sir Peter Beck and Adam Spice. And our producer, Scotto, strictly forbade, we cannot give out any confidential information. But I was thinking we can speak about some behind the scenes. And how do you guys feel about the interview?
I was pretty disappointed. I thought I was going to have a one-on-one, and then these three clowns joined in. But no, it was fun.
At least you get an invite. I still have to bug Vince to let me join.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
By the way, what do you think of my shirt I'm rocking today?
Electro is not the size.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's my life's motto,
Oh man. Seem to be having a few internet issues there, Vince.
I am? Okay.
Or I thought you were, but
yeah,
a little bit choppy.
It's coming in and out.
Anyway.
It's because it disconnected from my good internet. Okay, I'm reconnecting.
Very good. Very good. But yeah, for me, I thought it was a phenomenal opportunity to get a conversation in with them. I felt like it went smoother. I don't know how you felt, Dave. I felt like the conversations and the fluidity of the conversation went a lot smoother for me, at least this time around, than the previous time. So even though we kind of blocked it, and I guess people will see when we release it tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday for you guys. It'll be nice because I don't know. Can we say how we're structuring it so people can kind of go around?
You can probably, you can say
that. Hopefully Scott doesn't slap my hand, but basically, each four of us had our opportunity to ask questions. And so each of us will release our kind of version of it, of the interview on each other's channels. So be sure to give each other credit, right? So Dave has his on his, and I'm sure he might add some things here and there. I'm probably going to add some commentary myself about some of the other folks' questions, because Dave asked some phenomenal questions, Vince had some great questions, and same with Scott. So I just learning from it all. The whole time I was like trying to get my reaction kind of still, so I'm not freaking out being a fanboy in the background. But overall,
I'm always awkward for the first 45 seconds, and then I stumble over something. After that, I feel like I'm good, and once you're in the conversation or whatever, it's fine. But yeah, it always seems to happen that way.
Yeah, and I messed up the whole interview because we spoke about how we should do it, and I was getting sick when we were doing the interview. I'm still quite sick, and I don't know I don't know what happened. So it was supposed to be I ask one question, and then Dave, and then Matt, and then Scotto, and then we go in circles. And then somehow when I arrived in the group chat, Scotto wrote on the paper, we go in this order, and then the questions were, anyways. So
I think it turned out fine. Excited for people to see it.
Yeah, me too. Cool. So I think we should go over a little bit of space news that happened this week, and then we're going to go into the very interesting earnings that we have had. And I want to get your guys' take on certain things. So we start with the first space news. Let me just see. It's being shared. So Firefly was awarded a 20... is it new contracts, or it's an extension of a 10-piece contract? So they got 10 more.
I felt like it was an extension.
No, these are...
No?
Sorry, this is for L3 Harris, and the previous one was Lockheed Martin. So both.
But it's 20 new from Lockheed Martin?
Well, up to 20.
Up to 20
from L3, I believe, and then 15 to 25 for Lockheed.
So how many? Let's be real here. I'm going to be cocky and say this. How many do you think they're actually to get through before they have to switch to Electron? Unless these are bigger. I think that some people said that these might be too big for Electron as well.
Yeah, the annoying thing is they haven't told us what the payload is, which I always like to know. So we don't know what exactly they'll be launching. And the other thing is the wording made it sound a little bit less binding than like a firm contract. There was some discussion: is this like a contract or like a agreement? But
so it's like a non-binding agreement. Like they're like inching towards it, but they're not like signing in blood. You know?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I probably have to look into that more. But it sounded a little bit less firm. But yeah, if these payloads are under 300 kilograms, like I don't see any reason why they would end up on a alpha that's, more expensive than an Electron. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. And did you guys see this? I don't know if you can say a documentary, but this video by Real Engineering that was done on Firefly.
I didn't. I saw it pop up in my feed and I meant to watch it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I can like do the TLDR.
Okay.
So basically, he was going into that the niche that Firefly is handling is like super quick launch, and then we were like, it was the first time that I understood that okay, they're like a viable company and they're handling a problem that Electron is not handling and SpaceX is not handling. But I wonder how big that market is, because he was speaking with the engineers about like that is also why they don't have a reusable rocket, and that's also why they have certain, because everything is made so that you can load up the rocket in like 1 hour and then you can shoot up the rocket, and everything is super reliable only for that purpose,
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget Rocket Lab has responsive launch as well. And I think it's like Victus Nox or Victus something. There's too many Victus missions, but yeah. So, but that does seem to be Firefly's speciality.
Yeah, I just don't know how big that niche is, right? Because if you're like a commercial company launching a satellite, like will you pay extra? I don't know how many millions of dollars. We lost Dave. Is it my internet or is Dave?
Dave just rolled out.
Dave just rolled out.
He said, screw you guys. I have my own stream, I'm going to do my own. No, I'm just
kidding. Exactly. So back to what I was saying, like, I don't know if you're a commercial company that you would pay, I don't know, $5 million more to have your thing launched 2 weeks earlier,
Yeah.
As a military, I can see, like, for example, if like Russia shoots down a satellite and then the government is like, this satellite needs to be replaced like yesterday. I can see that there is like a niche there, But for commercial companies and these pre-planned satellites, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Yeah, not 100%.
All right. Dave, welcome back.
Thank you. I thought maybe you kicked me because I interrupted you or something.
No. So we're full of bugs here. So the next space news is this one. A Chinese rocket launched 18 satellites for a constellation, and then it broke up in orbit, releasing 700 different fragments. I think that this is the second. There was another space incident many years ago when a Russian satellite crashed into a US satellite. I think the Russian satellite was decommissioned. It was not on purpose. How significant do you guys think that this is? And is the low Earth orbit being ruined from space debris?
Well, you don't like to see it, that's for sure. And there's one like actually 2 weeks ago where an old Russian satellite just broke up on its own. Although you are correct as well. There was one several years back with a Russian collision, and that caused massive amounts of debris. It's something to keep an eye on. It's I think we need a little bit more regulation around it. I did touch on this in the discussion with Peter. Hopefully I'm allowed to say that.
Let's see what our producer says. If he sues you, we will have your back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what do you think about this one?
I think this is just going to continue to be a problem that we see. I think it was hit well on Wad Space, and I think that's why companies like Astroscale are taking the opportunity to kind of look forward. But we'll wait for what they say tomorrow in the interview. How about that?
Yeah, awesome. Okay. And now we take, I think this is my last space news. This is the Starliner saga that still keeps happening. It's comical to me at this point because they said that okay, there's not no official statements, but there was a suggestion that they would send up a Dragon, crew Dragon. I think that they were anyways going with 4 astronauts, but the Dragon could go with 2 astronauts and then bring back the stranded Starliner people. But then it came up that the Starliner is not optimized, or it cannot like auto deduct or whatever it's called. Like it cannot go away automatically from the space station. And I'm like, how?
It's very funny because you remember they did have an uncrewed test a year ago or something like that. And obviously it undocked okay, if I remember correctly, but now some software change and now they have to do some additional work on the software in order to undock if they're not going to have astronauts aboard. And there was some quote from someone from Boeing, and it was something along the lines of Starliner is designed to have astronauts on board or something. So it's a crazy story. It's become comical at this point.
Yeah. And also like to put up an up, like, how do you call it? Like I could buy this, right? But I'm like, to put up an update, it's like you send the software. I mean, which spacecraft was it? I'm sorry, this lunar spacecraft that was doing like something wrong. And then within like 2 hours, they reprogrammed. Was it Intuitive Machines when they were landing there?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of work being done, both on Intuitive Machines and the other one, Astrobotic, I think it was, when they made their landing attempts. But yeah, they sending updates and changes from Earth to those craft.
Yeah, within like they had a problem, and within 2 hours it was. And I read somewhere that Starliner needs like 4 weeks to do the update, and I'm like, do they need to like hire and train coders? And then I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is an issue. It just doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. But I'm sure people smarter than me, I don't know why it's an issue or have just made a decision about this.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, any comments on this?
Well, I think that, it's nice to see that for this reason, there should be potential for more opportunities to have more rapid access and ability to access the space station, right? And I think, I don't think that this is as dire a situation as Martian with Matt Damon, but, it is something that you just see that things can go wrong, even with years upon years, if not decades of planning. And it just goes to show that, there needs to be excess capacity for folks to be able to get out there, because who knows? I mean, what worst case scenario, these guys didn't have enough fuel or food for people on board of the International Space Station. And I think it's a good learning, because when we get to the Artemis missions here, not too long from now, we're going to have the Gateway program, and you're going to have the same sort of things that you have to do with the International Space Station with the Gateway, right? I mean, the Gateway is going to be a space station circling and the moon, orbiting the moon, and with that, you're going to have the same sort of connections and ability to connect up and send people back and forth to and from Earth. So, to me, and not only that, but from the lunar surface as well. So, this is a good learning piece, and hopefully we can understand, with Starliner as well as with Dragon, what can go wrong, right? And sometimes you don't find these things out until you try them multiple times. Unfortunately, for Boeing, though, it happened on the first try.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now let's start covering the long-awaited Rocket Lab earnings. And I think you guys can tell me what you think, but I think that they did exceptionally well in their update. I think it was one of the best investor updates from any company that I have seen, because they have really increased the transparency, the explaining of what Rocket Lab is all about, and they were really giving color on a lot of things. And it was a good quarter. But what was your guys' like first impression on the quarter?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. Revenue was in line. EPS was beat from what was expected. I really liked the presentation. I thought the visuals were a lot better. It's funny because I've seen some graphics out there very similar to what they ended up making for their own earnings presentation. So it's like they took some cues from, or maybe it was a great minds think alike situation, but it was a great way to, I think, share the high level story with a lot of people that seem to be getting so down in the weeds and like so upset about a single Electron launch getting moved back a quarter or something. And they're like, no, guys, here's the big picture. So I think they did a good job of that.
Yeah. Matt?
Yeah, I agree. I think it played really well between being a investor day update and also coupling that with the financial piece. But I think that Rocket Lab always does a phenomenal job of that. And Peter and Adam do a good job playing back and forth with respect to what's important. I think for what a lot of people are looking for, though, there's a lot of news stacking up with respect to, are we on track for Neutron? And so hopefully some nerves were calmed. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more in depth about it. But the milestones and where now we can kind of look to look forward to going forward with respect to that campaign. But also recognize that it's not just about Electron or Neutron, but there's also this large space systems business that's kicking and rolling and will continue to exceed and hopefully excel going into 2020, the rest of 2024 and 2025, specifically around a lot of different things that I think people didn't even know were happening, right? Like the ETA mission and many others. So I think it's a very versatile business that a lot of people don't give credit to, that a lot of other companies are likely to be extremely envious, although they might not show it right now. I think everyone's so much focused on launch. But in reality, I think the thing that's really going to differentiate us is the phenomenal bolt-on acquisitions that Adam and Peter have acquired since getting that $700-800 million from the SPAC days, and immediately putting that to work to really solidify themselves as an end-to-end. Because I don't think you really have anybody else right now that is building and bolting on like Rocket Lab is.
Awesome. So I was thinking we quickly go through the Electron part of the presentation. So they showed this slide, which I think was misunderstood by a lot of people, about how the Electron is being built. And they basically get 90% of the money in the bank before launch. So every time that there is a launch delay, it's only this 10% of money that is out. Some crazy statistics here. They sold 17 Electron launches year to date. That's a run rate of 34 launches. I think that's fantabulous. 64% market share of all non-SpaceX US orbital launch. It shows a little bit of the missions that it has, the 10 launches that it signed with Synspective, and 4 launches with a confidential customer. And I think for what is important now, this chart is crazy good. One really good news for me is that they are on track to be the fastest rocket to reach 100 launches ahead of the Falcon 9, which is just crazy, because you see how much they are scaling, and the other type of rockets, they're not even like keeping up.
Yeah, but can you hold on that one for a second, Vince?
Yeah,
so I actually did some analysis. So it took Falcon 9 10 years to get to 101 launches. Now I don't have the granularity to figure out if they reached that 101st or 100th launch in January of that 10th year, or if it was, you know what I mean? So I don't have that granularity, but what I do know is that it took them 10 years. So we're 7 years in, 50 launches, 52 launches after this weekend. And if you think about it in that perspective, we need to basically maintain 15 launches per annum for the next 3 years, assuming that we get to like 16 launches this year. So we're like a couple away from that. But we need a cadence of about 15. So we either need to get to 15 and maintain that for the next 3 years. So in order to beat Falcon 9 to 100, or we need to have a couple good years, and we might be able to squeeze and shave off a year or two. And the one thing that I also am curious about, though, is if you would combine, say, Electron and Haste as one, or if you would decouple them, considering they're kind of, one is going suborbital and one is actually going into orbit, if that makes sense. So that's another piece that I'm kind of curious when I'm doing some of my tracking. Am I off by one right now because of the June 23 launch of that Haste mission? And obviously we'll have some more Haste missions going into the fourth quarter and the first quarter of next year. So my thought process is, you know, how do we keep track of that piece? But at the end of the day, that shouldn't be too difficult because right now there's not so many Haste missions. But I anticipate, and then hopefully you guys will hear in the interview tomorrow, a lot more coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a little bit of, you know, different companies can spin it different ways because obviously, yeah, you're right. Haste isn't orbital. So maybe in 2 years, we'll see a chart from, they probably don't care enough to do this, but they could publish a chart showing Falcon 9 had more orbital launches than Electron, but does it really matter, you know? But yeah, so 15, the average, that's interesting. It's not actually, it sounds very achievable.
Yeah, thanks for the color on this one. I'm also surprised how achievable it is.
It was really eye-opening. I was just like, man, because like you said, right, that you really do see the pace and the cadence ramp up from the Falcon 9, and it's true. I think they end up getting about 20 to 25 launches in the latter years, so it does speed up a little bit, but we are a year ahead from them from when we hit 50, right? So we're kind of on an earlier time frame, so it allows us to kind of slow down to the back end. But my hope is we don't, and we continue to accelerate.
Yeah. Well, they're as Vince showed in a previous slide, they're on track to have within a year like 30 plus launches signed. So yeah, if they maintain anywhere near that rate.
And did you guys catch in the earnings that he said 72% of the customers are returning, and they have, was it Black Sky, or they're one of the customers, like group contract is being finished and delivered, and probably they will be resold again, hopefully, for quite a few launches.
Yeah, not sure which one that is, but wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. I mean, yeah, hopefully we do have more of these block launches sold, and then it will be very easy to keep the 15 pace.
At least, I mean, to be honest, 15 would be disappointing to me.
Yeah. And what do you guys say about this one? Like how freaking accurate they are. I get this, you know, this Turkish meme from the Olympics. You guys remember when the guy?
Oh, the guy,
with no gear, and he's just. I feel like Peter Beck is like, you know, the industry standard is like kilometers, and it's like we're gonna do 8 meters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as I said previously, I think that's a very useful capability for some people, like an astroscale or anyone who wants to deorbit space junk or rendezvous. If they ever made a capsule, being able to, you know, pinpoint accuracy, I'm sure is quite important. So it, you know, very impressive.
Yeah, it's because it's if you're not this accurate, right, then you have to use the satellite's own fuel to like navigate to the, and then if your satellite doesn't need to use that much fuel, then it can live longer, or you can design it like not as heavy, or like it's just a win-win if you're this accurate. So,
I know that especially in wild space, I think that, you know, Peter said that they were accused of building Ferraris, right, in terms of, you know, how precision like they are trying to be with respect to the quality. But I think this just goes to show the testament, right? I mean, not only will you have the ability to get there and the cadence to get there, but you also have the accuracy as well. And, you know, for right now, at the time being, it seems like the way to go, right? Other than what some people might be trying to do, which is a lower cost, you know, more manufacturing like sort of way to get to the end goal. I think that may play out in time. Like there might be a company that disrupts when the total addressable market is massively up there. But I think for right now, with the total addressable market the way it is and the need for so few players at the moment, the precision and the ability to match that cadence, even if it is a little bit more expensive, is the right way to go. And, you know, that's just kind of my thought process, right? I don't think that there's enough of a total addressable market to have like a Ford of rocket launches, right? People need to really get their things into space. They can't handle sort of a lower quality at the moment because it is so expensive and people do take so much time to build these satellites.
Yeah. I mean, if Astra every launch is $3 million, it's technically expensive, but if every second launch blows up, then you do need to build a satellite 2 times and shoot it on 2 rockets, and then you end up becoming more expensive. So it's just safer and more prudent to spend more money and know that you're getting a product. I also just wanted to mention here, I'm also going to mention it when we go on to Neutron, that one of the biggest things for me from the Wild Wild Space documentary, which I knew that Peter Beck was a very good engineer, right? But when Ashley Vance said that he is like 1 in a billion good engineer, and somebody even asked him, like, is Elon or Peter Beck the better engineer? And Ashley Vance was basically being very politically correct, and he kind of said like both is exceptionally good, but Peter Beck is like 1 in a billion. And this is when you start seeing it, you know, like when you have this like insane accuracy. And now we move on to Neutron, where this will also play into. So this is the other thing. I think that if you look at this chart, how fast they're developing rockets, they were even asked on the earnings call, how can you guys develop rockets so quick? And Peter Beck just said this is the Rocket Lab magic, right? Because somehow like he has the intuition to which way to go with the rocket, and then he builds it, and then it just works. And I have a theory that I think also when you look at this chart here of how much different rockets cost, it's from this payload space. And, you know, if you're a critical Wall Street analyst, I think that you don't believe them, because you're like, every rocket, like this rocket, like the Neutron, should cost $1 billion. And, you know, that means that Rocket Lab should take loans and, you know, raise capital. And it should be 6 years, you know, because that's how normally, like if you look at the statistic. And I think that it's like us as retail investors, we can look at the slides, we can see what they're building, we see that the tests, so we can believe it and think with it. But I think that Wall Street doesn't believe these numbers. Any comments from you guys on this?
Doesn't seem to me like the company is valued as if people are expecting it to be on time and on budget. This, you know, they are saying it is. So, well, there was that 6 months delay, but yeah, the being so cheap, I think, is really the most impressive.
Yeah, and I think the market at the moment is really discounting it with the expectation that New Glenn is going to work day one. And I think that you had this opportunity to see in 2024 if New Glenn 1 even gets off the ground, you know, on time, as we're expecting, kind of in the December 24 timeframe, to be able to meet that Mars Escapade mission, right? That's kind of the goal, and Rocket Lab's a part of that. So, you know, it's kind of like a win-win or like a win-lose if New Glenn goes up, but it's also a win-lose if, depending on how you look at it, if New Glenn doesn't, because if it blows up on the pad or doesn't meet orbit or what have you, then, you know, you have 2 years until Rocket Lab kind of gets that notoriety of being, you know, the Escapade mission, etc. But at the same time, if it does blow up, then you do get the contract again, hopefully, to build the satellites a second time. So it's an interesting piece. But I think, you know, you have this piece right now that everyone at the moment is understanding that New Glenn is going to be there. It's going to be taking market share away from the Falcon 9, even though it's going to be a slightly larger vehicle than the Falcon 9. But the thought process is people are kind of assuming it's going to work. What if it doesn't, right? And it really opens up the avenue for Neutron to really be that key player that can come in, and knowing how precision like these guys are and how much time, effort, et cetera, they're putting into the design of this and the fabrication and the testing, that I'm very comfortable that we'll see orbit. Will it be successful, you know, with whatever they send out into space? I don't, you know, who knows? Or if they're even sending some sort of payload. I assume they'll send some sort of photon or something like that just to be able to have that. But But anyway, this is kind of my thought process. I think at the moment, everyone's just assuming New Glenn's going to work. New Glenn's going to take market share. Neutron isn't really anything as of yet, but I think the tables will soon turn as soon as we have a successful launch with Neutron. And who knows what's going to happen with New Glenn.
Yeah, but isn't New Glenn like more expensive than Falcon 9?
It's also significantly bigger, but
It is a lot bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the market shapes up. You've got New Glenn, you've got Relativity's new rocket, you've got MLV from Firefly, obviously Neutron. Stoke is trying to bring online a medium rocket. Like these next 3-4 years are going to be fascinating. So which is kind of.
When is Relativity? Because they launched the Terran 1, right? And that was rather successful. So congrats to them. And then they were just like, screw small launch, we're going to medium, right? And now they're on the R. Is R still getting
2027, they're saying?
Was it 27? Okay. I thought they were still aiming for like 26. Okay.
I believe 27. Yeah.
I'm not surprised it's getting pushed back.
I must say that in both in the tweet and on the earnings call, like Peter Beck sounds very confident in Neutron. And I was very happy with how confident he was on the earnings call. Because I feel like it calms my nerves, when you know that there's all these vehicles coming. And then he was just so cocky. And he's right. I mean, like the rocket companies that have had one launch, like I don't know how you have the experience to then use on a mid-launch vehicle. And I think it's significantly hard. Like it's much better to make all the mistakes on Electron, which is an $8 million mistake if you do it, than having it on a 56 million or 60 million rocket.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit continuation of Neutron. What's also special with the Rocket Lab is that they're not only, so Peter Beck says, and I take him by his word, that many companies build like a minimum viable product, and it's not the operational vehicles and engines that go on the test engine. And Rocket Lab actually skipped that part and they went straight to a production engine. And they did the hot fire at 102% throttle, and it was working as designed. And not only are they building the production version of the engine, they're also building the production line, and they're showing us very nice pictures. And I guess it must be because the market doesn't believe them, that all this money is going into not just the rocket, but even the infrastructure. But it looks very, very real to me, and insane good progress. And I've never felt better about the Neutron development. What do you guys say about this?
Yeah, I thought I was very happy to see that picture of Archimedes firing. I assume it may have been very short duration, or maybe that's why they didn't give us a video, but I'm sure they're going to keep working up to that. But to me, like the biggest risk, I think most people thought about the whole Neutron program would probably be propulsion. And to see that progress being made on it, I think removes a lot of risk. Like we already know they can do carbon composites. Like it's, they've done a lot of re-entry work on Electron already. We'll see how the propulsive landing bit goes, but overall, I feel very comforted by this update.
Yeah, and then we'll find out a little bit more about the re-entry piece tomorrow. That'll be fun. I agree. I think the 102% thrust was nice to see. I guess my curiosity to hear from them, and this is me kind of nerding out, maybe it's an investor day sort of thing, but I'd like to kind of see, because the restart rate and the transient stuff, I feel like the transients piece is going to be very vital for the reignition and re-entry phase. And so with that, I'm kind of curious as to, you're obviously not performing at full thrust anyway. I think that there's 9 Archimedes engines that are going to be powering Neutron that are going to be at 50% thrust or less. And with that, I think I'm kind of curious, is it going to follow in with like Falcon 9, where you only have 2 or 3 sort of engines that are really powering you rather than so I'm just kind of thinking in my head, how are they modeling that piece to be able to appropriately steer and gimbal and be able to keep it upright. It'll be a lot of fun to kind of observe. Yeah.
Do you guys remember what Peter Beck said? What like how much percentage they're going to use the engine at? Because on yesterday's video, like somebody gave me a sort of hate comment that like you're an idiot, 102% it's going to blow up on flight. And then I answered him that yeah, but they're planning to use it at like 20 or 30%. And then he was like, you don't know about rocket industry, like it doesn't work like that. And I'm like, okay, but the plan is to not use it at 100%.
No, the hope was to over design it so you can reuse it a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember. I've heard numbers like 50% thrown out. I've heard numbers like 20% thrown out. So I'm not 100% sure what the real number is. And let me see if they have it on the.
Yeah, I just remember like the concept being, low pressures to make the engine last long and not stressing it. I don't have any exact numbers for you, and I've never claimed to be like a expert on rocket engineering or propulsion.
Yeah, I love it. You have like actual rocket scientists. Like this guy's on. It's like, dude, I'm here because I'm excited about the stock. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah. But I do enjoy learning about it, and I definitely have from a lot of different commenters out there and people I talk to. There is a lot of people out there that know a lot about this stuff, so definitely better than I was. Yeah,
same here. Cool. So that covers Neutron, and now we go over to the space systems part of the earnings. Okay, this chart for me was like, I remember doing these videos with Scotto and doing this research, like trying to figure out which contract has how many satellites, and they just laid it all out for us. So really kudos on the transparency here. Mm-hmm. They completed the twin satellites that hopefully don't blow up on New Glenn. And they are expanding the solar manufacturing with the grant, enabling space pharmaceuticals, constellation production updates. This is like the constellations that they're building for different customers and how much is left. And that they have a new next generation satellite dispenser. Mm-hmm. And all of this is just basically supporting their desire to become an end-to-end space company and sell their own infrastructure. So what was your guys' opinion about the space systems, which funny enough is 70% of Rocket Lab? So this like when you're buying Rocket Lab, like this is more what you're buying than the rockets.
I'm very, very happy with space systems. I mean, when you think about it, the fact that the customer readiness piece for Electron hasn't really been there, and yet they're still pretty much hitting all their numbers, shows what space systems is doing. It's kind of outperforming. And when you see it all laid out like that in the chart, there's a lot going on. I wouldn't have minded seeing a few more new contracts announced. So like often right around a earnings call, we'll get news of like, oh yeah, we signed a new contract for 5 new satellites to be built or whatever. Didn't see any of that really this time, but the backlog still did grow by about 5%, I think. So still pretty healthy, but we're waiting for I guess the next big one to happen.
Yeah. Matt?
Yeah, I think space systems is something that I originally, when the company went public, was like, why do we need this, right? And then I've slowly learned that this is really going to be the cash engine for the organization. And really, what I think we get most excited about is launch, but we forget about the fact that the majority of the engineering and the majority of what we need is actually the satellites that go into space. And so the star trackers and the actual cameras and things that we are going to use to kind of monitor Earth or to monitor space and send back data to Earth for us to monitor. I mean, a lot of that is really the important piece of the organization. And so I'm just excited to continue to see it do well. And I'm curious to see that, because all the Photon was really built to accommodate Electron. I'm curious if they're going to build something comparable that can be used in Neutron. That might be, I guess, something comparable that they can kind of use as a standard base and foundation for that, right? Because obviously the difference in payload is massive, right? We're talking about 330 kilograms for Electron versus 13,000 on a reusable basis for Neutron. So a large discrepancy in potential satellites in volume that you can send to space. So very curious to see how Space Systems develops, but you have a lot of the foundational pieces to really set yourself up for success in the future.
Awesome.
I think Vince is dying up there. I feel bad.
That's okay. I really love doing the Rocket Lab Weekly, so I was like, as long as my breath shows up on a mirror, I want to do it. And I can't infect anyone because it's like online. So otherwise, if it was in person, I would be like, yeah, I don't want a bunch of sick people. Okay, so now the last thing left is the financials for the quarter and the guidance for next quarter and the backlog. I mean, it's very like, I don't know how much we need to go into it, because it's like we're speaking about the long term and Neutron and what's going to happen, and this is only focusing on like the next quarter. But what did you guys think about their finances and the projections?
Overall pretty good. So we're looking at like 71% growth year over year, which is amazing. Net loss, 41 million seems like it's kind of the rate we're going at. So $540 million in the bank, that should last them plenty long at this point. In terms of guide, I guess one thing I found interesting is they're talking about 498 million shares outstanding. So we're looking at 4 million more shares. So I guess that could be due to employee compensation and stuff like that. Just something to keep an eye on, a little bit of dilution. Not massive. I'm sure you guys are used to it with Palantir. I hear they have lots of stock-based comp.
Yeah.
And the one thing is Q3 looks like it'll have a little bit less revenue than what we saw in Q2, but I blame launch for that and, customer readiness issues.
Yeah, I think that this one will unfortunately be a duller quarter, right? Just get back to delivery, and maybe we'll have some sprinkles of some of the future Neutron milestones in there as well. So, I mean, I know that there's a whole tranche of things that we have to do over the next 12 months for that, but it really just seems like you have 2 to 3 launches, right? It's rather light in that respect. And we've already had the one, we'll have the second, and then who knows when the third will kind of go off. But I think it's really setting itself up for the fourth and the first quarter of next year to really get themselves into large space of delivery. So hopefully they can really pat themselves on the back, have a sigh of relief after this whole Neutron engine testing. They can say, okay, that's off of our backs. We don't have to necessarily have anxiety associated with that. Let's get back to our desks and really get after this and really deliver on the backs of an extremely successful quarter. And, quarter over quarter, it's not a big deal, but still year over year, like you stated, Dave, it's going to be over 70%, right? If you think, I think our run rate was in like the 60 million to potentially 65 million, and some quarters actually dipped into the 50 millions last year. So that 70% year over year revenue growth was nothing to scoff at, but quarter over quarter growth, right? I mean, you're right. It's slightly down, but I think it's really setting themselves up to really get closer to 650 million next year in run rate. So I think that will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we could zoom out a little bit. We just had a 100 million quarter. So
right.
When I started looking at the company, I think it was like 40 million quarters and stuff like that,
Yeah, it's pretty impressive on the revenue growth. So now we come to the last point that I think is the most interesting to people. So what do we think the stock is going to do and when? And I can just briefly tell you that on this 13% up day, I sold $8 covered calls on all my position January 2025.
Wow.
Because I don't like, as I said, I think that Wall Street doesn't believe that Neutron will be on time and it will be in this budget. And I think when the stock is going to meaningfully go up is when basically when Neutron flies or when we start seeing Neutron contracts. But what do you guys think?
My question for that one is, Vince, is are you just trying to capture?
Yeah, I'm not planning to sell. I would roll if
well, no, my thought process is are you just trying to capture a little bit of a snippet, right? So your thought process is we have a little bit of a bump to the 540 range. You sold the $8 covered call. You get that premium. The volatility in the stock kind of comes down, maybe come down to $455 again. Will you buy back at a lower price and really only try to capture, say, 10% or 20% of that initial premium that you got? Or are you really planning on holding that for an extended period of time?
I mean, it's an interesting question because, I have margin on the portfolio, right? And the thing is that the selling the cover call, it lessens the margin and it also gives a buffer, like in case that there is a market turn down, the portfolio is a lot more supported. So meaning like I could go back down to like below 3.5 and I would still be able to keep all my position without being forced sold. But I'm definitely open to maneuver with the position, It's what is it? It's 5 months from now. And how do you call it? Like if the stock goes to 10 in that time, I will just be very happy, and I will roll the position and even pay up if I need to,
Do you mind sharing what the premium was on those? Do you remember? Was it like 10 cents or more
no?
than that?
It was. I think it was 31 cents.
31? Okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, the way I would look at it is if I were to do that, me personally, right? So I'm not saying for you, Vince, but like I would just look for a little bit of cash. Like if you think about it, I would be able to write 190 contracts, about maybe 195, because I'm at 19,500 shares ish or so. So if I were able to get, let me just see, $31, 195 times 31, yeah, I'd be getting like $6,000 right off the bat. So I would just be looking to like capture 10% of that. You know what I mean? Like I would be so excited just to capture like a $600 sliver. I personally wouldn't risk the $8 mark. But I agree with you. I think by January, even if we do hit $8 in the short term, say off of a really good third quarter or something like that, or really good Neutron news, and for some reason you have this large pile in, I don't think we have a sustained base at the moment to be able to keep above $8 for very long. So I think you'll probably be safe even if you hold it to January. But I would just be so afraid to limit my 20. Where my thought is like you have a 20x opportunity and you're potentially limiting yourself, right? But at the same time, you never know when the stock's gonna, take a massive jump.
Yeah. I mean, I agree on this. I can just tell you that when this Japanese carry trade hit, like my portfolio was almost margin called. And I was actually waiting for Palantir's report to sell covered calls to buffer up the portfolio. And I felt so freaking stupid because I even had covered calls on Palantir, which would have protected me. And like I bought them back for like $1,000 in gain because I was so afraid that Palantir was going to break over 30. And then when the account was almost margin called, I had to sell Palantir call options at $24, which are very underwater right now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, it's better for me to be safe. And even if the stock goes to 12 or 13, like I can still roll the positions. I just cannot like opportunistically sell Rocket Lab, but I'm not planning to sell Rocket Lab anyways, So,
yeah. I think it's rough with these situations. Like, I don't know. Personally, I know you don't want to unload any Rocket Lab shares.
Don't
but
swear on this channel. No.
was I about to?
The selling Rocket
was-
Lab is a forbidden topic. No.
Yeah. But when you're in margin, the problem is it forces you to sell at the exact time where you don't want to sell.
Yep.
So I would try to remove some of that and reduce your exposure. But that's what I think. In terms of the stock itself, for a long time, I've thought like there's no guarantee it goes up a lot until profitability. It maybe Neutron does it. We've seen it with ASTS. They've gone from like $2.30 to about $20 now. They still aren't anywhere near profitable. So it can happen, but there's no guarantee it will. So I'm kind of prepared to wait that long if I need to. But yeah, so my plan is I've got this wedding coming up I'm paying for. Hopefully with that out of the way, I'll get a bit more cash available and just monitor it and wait. If the stock does stay low and we start getting close to Neutron launch, we start getting closer to profitability. Like I might buy some aggressive calls. I might add a bunch more shares. I'd like to get my share count up a little higher anyway, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna like see if the opportunity is there leading up to Neutron launch, which should be within a year to, I think, getting close to profitability, and maybe take a flyer on some call options.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it'd be nice now that we're at the $5 range. My biggest problem is that they don't have any like north of 12. It's like I would love to have like a super cheap 15 or like a super cheap
That'd be
$20.
interesting, yeah.
Because it's not necessarily about thinking it's actually going to get there, right? But it's more about if it actually, because if you could buy it for super cheap, 10 cents, 5 cents, etc., and you do see a large move with the implied volatility alone, it might quadruple or triple the value of that. And so, you're not looking for it to actually go to $22.
It does, exactly.
25. Yeah. You're looking for just the movement in the option price to just be like, ooh, well, the likelihood is a lot more now that it's at $7.50 than it was at $5.50. So now it's 20 cents instead of 5 cents. And you just, put a couple grand in there. And next thing you know, you're up $4 or $5 grand. It's helpful. Then you can buy more shares and everyone's happy, right?
Are you guys familiar with Emmett Peppers?
No.
I'm not.
Tesla guy, but basically, right around before they went profitable, he bought some call options pretty heavily and ended up retiring off of it basically because he just.
Wow.
Now I'm not saying Rocket Lab is Tesla, but sometimes I just feel like it'd be kind of cool to take a swing at some stuff like that. Not as like all in as he was, but yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I agree with you because things can turn around so fast. And the thing is just like with Tesla, I think that it was like more predictable because I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't play it, but it's like if you understood the fundamentals and you were like, okay, they're in the factory and they're either go bankrupt or they 10x from here.
Yeah.
But on Rocket Lab, I feel that there is a few things that can make it go. Like, I don't know how the market is going to react on Neutron contracts. I don't know how the market is going to react on the Neutron launch. I was actually thinking that on the Neutron launch, like maybe one could buy like a put and a call at the same price, because if it blows up, I think the stock will be like minus 20%. And if it like flies, it will be like plus 30%, And then on ASTS, I think that the mooning happened on them solving financing and basically getting the satellites done and them confirming that they have partners where they will get customers, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say the financing is done though. They've got like $240 million. It's kind of been communicated that to build out their constellation is like over $1 billion, but it's there's a lot of interesting stuff happening right now. And I wouldn't like risk anything on an option that I'm not able to lose completely. And I don't plan on unloading any of my actual shares, just to be clear.
Yeah. Same.
So
here.
wait, sorry. In what time horizon you're not going to unload any shares? Ever?
Oh, well, obviously not never, but not until like something changes with the company and the valuation where, yeah.
I mean, interesting food for thought, because on this never, that let's say Rocket Lab like 50x's, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then to write like monthly covered calls on it, it would like pay you whatever you put into it, like probably over every month, or maybe like 2 or 3 times that every month. And then you don't need to sell if you think that there's still room to go.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about understanding at the time if there's another opportunity, right? And to me, it would be okay to take my money off the table at some point, not anytime soon. I think my thought process is I'll probably reevaluate when the company gets to a $10 to $12 billion market valuation, which is about 5x, 6x from here. And so that's probably the first time I would even contemplate taking anything, but it would never be the whole thing, right? It might just be a little bit of my cost basis. And I think I was doing the same sort of calculation with Palantir. It's like, I don't think I would ever realistically sell Palantir unless it got to $100 a share. And at a cost basis that I have right now with my shares is at 13, if I were to sell, I was thinking I might sell like 1,000 shares or something, or like a little less than 25% of my position. I was like, at that point, even if I sold 500 shares, I'd be able to at least get my cost basis back. But it also depends on what exactly am I selling it for, right? I think a lot of times people are so willing to just like sell. But the thought process for me is really, what would I sell that and put it into? Is it something like the SPY? Is it something that I can like get less volatile, can kind of guarantee it's going to continue on the right path? Because at the same time, it really depends on what the prospects for the company are in the future. I could see Rocket Lab really getting to that $50 billion market valuation, especially if the haste piece really expands from where it is right now, and you become very much more dependent upon the DoD and some of the other folks that would be looking for some sort of haste missile, right? Because not only then are you focusing on space, but then you're thinking about subspace as well, and that could have defense aspirations, and with that would obviously have a huge impact to your bottom line. So sorry, I went on a big tangent there, but yeah, I was trying to think like, when would I actually, and I agree with Vince, like to me, it would be about when would be appropriate to start selling kind of like decent cover calls. And obviously down at this point, it's very difficult because at the $5 range, like going from 5 to 6 is a 20% move. And so you don't really have that granularity. But when you get to a 10 to $12 billion market valuation, we're going to be hopefully in like the $25 to $30 range. So each one of those dollar increment strike prices will be closer to 2.5% to 3%. So a little bit more digestible than the current 20% up or down strike price that you have right now.
Yeah. I guess I would just say, I think whenever you're invested into an individual company, especially if it's heavily, you have to constantly be monitoring the underlying company, your own financial situation, how much risk tolerance you have, and, where the stock's moving, and all these factors play a role in the decision. So yeah, it's hard, at any point to say, okay, in 5 years, I'll sell it for whatever number.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You always have to reevaluate and see what's your situation. Cool, guys. It was a really good episode. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to go and crash now and just be
I was
sick.
just say, don't hide me, man.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And tomorrow the interviews are coming out.
It'll be a good time. And I guess my question for you guys is, do any of you plan on doing the launch tomorrow? I was planning on getting up, but never know. 7:15 my time is a little early, so we'll see.
I want to do it. We can co-stream if you.
Okay.
Vince, You've been working so much on the YouTube thing. You're like, you're coughing up
Yeah,
a lung over there. Then
I'm gonna be sitting across a stream from a skeleton that's just like deteriorating.
He's doing interviews. He's like, I don't know.
But look, would
Take
you
care of
miss an
yourself,
interview
too.
with? Would you miss an interview with Peter Beck because you have a slight cough? I'm like, no freaking way, you know.
No, of course not. But maybe a
I
launch
rather
at
just went in
7:15
and messed it up for all of you guys. Well,
It was fine.
no, it's also my wife said the same thing, and I'm like, look, you don't get it. Like the earnings is like the Super Bowl of Rocket Lab, and like the value that we provide with like to the audience is like keeping up to date with Rocket Lab, you know. And I cannot like, you know, do earnings videos like 3 weeks after everybody talked about it. It's like,
Yeah.
YouTube is a tough business.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, and you're almost full. Like you're part-time still, but you're still almost full-time with it. So you do a good job.
Thank you, guys. You also do a very good job. Both of your channels are a lot bigger than mine.
Well, I've been doing it for what 6-7 years, so probably even longer now. What 2017? So
awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone, and see you guys next week or maybe tomorrow on the lunch.
yeah, thanks for hosting.
Yeah, ciao, ciao.
Yep, cheers all.